Hey there guys, so we're checking out Shadow Warrior 3 running on the AMD Ryzen 5 5500U. Now you're looking at the game currently running right now at the 1080p resolution, but we are using FSR on top of that at the performance preset, and everything is set to the lowest graphics settings except for the textures. And unfortunately, the level of performance that we're getting like this is pretty abysmal. It is a DirectX 12 game, so I did actually play it for a good little while before actually restarting the mission so that shaders and all of that could actually be cached in. And so this is pretty much how it performs at the stock 15-watt TDP like this, and it's pretty abysmal. The averages look pretty decent, but where things really start to fall apart is in those 1% lows. As you can see by the frame time charts, there are these consistent stutters throughout the entirety of the gaming experience. And it really seems like it just comes down to the fact that the game has a pretty insane amount of effects happening constantly. That really seems to just drag down the experience, because a lot of the times things will perform perfectly fine until an enemy gets blown to bits or chunks of their bodies just start to fly around the place. That's usually where the biggest performance hits end up happening. So with that being the case, at the stock 15-watt TDP, this game is pretty much unplayable. Now, of course, we can try to raise the TDP up to 25 watts and see if that actually helps us out. And as you can see here at the 25-watt TDP, we are still running into the exact same issues, where the performance will look perfectly fine until the enemies start to get turned into ground meat, and then that's where everything really starts to fall apart. And really, but what you can tell by the frame time charts in general is that this is just not going to be a very pleasant experience whatsoever. Now, of course, we could also try to drop the resolution down to 720p to see if that will actually fix any of the problems that we have, and of course use FSR on top of that. So visually speaking, we're about to take a pretty major hit in terms of the quality, but hopefully that's enough to actually uplift the performance that we're getting here. Unfortunately, that does not appear to be the case at all. Our averages are really looking fantastic, but again, it's those 1% lows that drag down the whole experience. These very frequent stutters that just end up happening as you're playing the game really just drag down the whole experience. What will end up feeling really rock solid 1 second will just end up being a complete disaster. And you can see that as I'm just traveling from area to area, the performance is fine, but then we'll hit these lag spikes that drag everything down. And things will recover perfectly fine until you end up pretty much in the scenario where you actually get into combat, and then those stutters and drops just end up being so frequent that it makes the entire experience very disorientating. And really, just in general, it's such a frequent problem that I think the vast majority of people are really not going to enjoy playing like this. Really, the absolute best level of performance that I actually managed to get was by setting the TDP all the way up to 30, where our 1% lows finally make it into the double digits, but it's still not enough to really salvage the experience. It is just too much of a disaster. It's going to be so inconsistent, and it's unfortunate to see that really at no setting was the game actually going to be playable. You would have to be very forgiving to frequent stutters to want to play like this. And it's really disappointing to see, as this would be a pretty fantastic game to actually be able to play on a system like this. But unfortunately, at least with the 5500U system that I have, it is just not enough. I'm hoping that at least the 5600H will be enough to play this, but we're gonna have to check that out at a later date. For right now, I say this is really just not going to be a playable experience at all, but it is a judgment call on your part, since the averages are pretty rock solid, but those stutters are just so bad that I think the vast majority of people will not be happy with it. I certainly wasn't. But anyways, I will catch you guys in the next one.